This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, the most popular pro wrestling YouTube channel based in Canada. By far, no one comes close. But I got some sad news to report. The father of Roman Reigns and former WWE superstar Rosy. He was a three-time WWE Tag Team Champion and member of the 2007 Hall of Fame. Wild Samoan Sika has passed away, famously the partner of Afa. They were before my time. The main thing I remember about them is Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas beating them to become the first black WWE Tag Team Champions. So other than that, I don't really have anything that sticks out from them. I know he wrestled on a Saturday Night Main Event at one point, but so they did use him in later years as a single here and there. But by the time like the 80s, toward the late 80s, when I became a fan, because I was just a kid in the 80s, a little baby, he was pretty much being phased out. But that might explain but why Roman Reigns has wanted all this time off, if he may have been aware that his father was passing away, because so far the interest in WWE has gone down significantly since WrestleMania, with Roman Reigns no longer being part of the product. They even canceled a couple house shows recently. Their sellout streak ended. There's been less interest in pay-per-views. They're still doing good overall, but it's not to the level of when Roman Reigns was champion. So as I said, maybe there is issues. Of course, if my father was going through health issues, um, not only would I not want to feel like wrestling as much, but I would definitely want to be spending as much time with him as possible. There's a ton of other news, so I'll get into that now. As far as Too Cold Scorpios incident, TMZ has released more pictures of what they're calling the victim, quote unquote. Here's what I don't understand, and maybe it's a difference between Canada and the US. First of all, Scorpio's almost 60. People think of him of when he was in his prime in WCW and Flash Funk in WWE. This guy has been through battles. He's got injuries. He's older. He's doing a security job, probably not getting paid that much. This guy attacks him, as reported, tried to double leg him. You never know who's armed or not. I'm not justifying that he stabbed the guy. All I'm saying is I've worked security on my own before. It can be scary because you have no backup and you don't know if the person causing trouble or attacking you is armed or not. And if Scorpio is armed, he's a guy that's, from what I understand, he's a badass type guy. You don't know all you know is this guy's attacking you and you defend yourself. I mean, he is bailed out and he's going to get his day in court. And I mean, I have heard other stuff about this case that I'm not going to talk about, but there's a whole other side to this. But I don't consider anyone that attacks somebody else a victim. They started it. He's just working a job, man. If you're doing a job that's not paying much, I highly doubt security guard at a gas station pays a lot. The guy has kids. He's older. He's got injuries, and this guy's attacking you. You're going to defend yourself. And sometimes when you're defending yourself, you become an animal if you have that side to you. I'm gonna guess, since it was at a gas station, it was filmed, but I would not call this guy a victim. He was the one that was the attacker. So I'm sorry about that Scorpio has to go through all that. I'm, but there is another side to it that I'm sure is going to come out. Positive is going to come out. Apparently, according to Dave Meltzer, WWE is getting the largest American site fee ever for their deal in Indiana for WrestleMania to come there, as well as the Royal Rumble and SummerSlam. SummerSlam is going to be 2 nights starting next year. To me, and you know what? I'll be honest. I was actually talking to someone at the gym yesterday, okay, who was a wrestling fan in the 80s. This guy is an athlete in golf and speed skating. And he was just asking me why wrestling isn't as popular anymore. We keep hearing it's going through a resurgence, but this guy who does not follow it anymore was asking me, in my opinion, why it's not as popular. One of the reasons is they keep watering stuff down. SummerSlam 2 nights. You know what that means? Instead of having the best of the best on one show, it's spread out and watered down to 2 nights. I mean, I know why they're doing it, because they can and they're getting larger site fees to do it twice in a row, but it waters down the product, just like as we saw. You know what? Remember when AEW just had Dynamite? Remember that? They were actually way more popular. Now they got Rampage and Collision, and they went from, I think it was a 0.64, 0.66 first episode of Dynamite to 0.16 last week. More is not always better. People need to understand that. I know they're a rich company, they have more sources of revenue than ever, but to me, adding a second night of SummerSlam, I mean, it just makes SummerSlam more watered down. That's just my opinion of it. They're also, part of that deal is to bring numerous Raws and SmackDown to Indianapolis. So I'm gonna assume they must be getting site fees for those two, because it was in the news before that they're looking for site fees for Raw and SmackDown. Apparently, UFC, other than Madison Square Garden and T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, those are the only two arenas that they're gonna go to and not expect site fees. That's according, and keep in mind, UFC owns WWE as well. It's all part of TKO. So keep in mind, UFC came twice here to Ottawa. That's not going to happen again unless the city of Ottawa or some rich person in this area pays a large fee for UFC to come, because they just don't need the money, and it's too much of a pain in the ass to do. They'd rather just put on a fight night at the Apex in Las Vegas, where their base is. It's cheaper overall for them. So we're living in a new world for as far as site fees. I don't know who Kaiser is, but Kaiser from WWE is apparently hurt. From all reports, The Miz did commentary on a match on Raw yesterday, and it was terrible. Apparently, for McGregor, who, I mean, there's a toe injury. If the money was right, would he still have done the fight? Probably. But apparently, McGregor might not fight again until whenever they go to Saudi Arabia next, where there's a ridiculous amount more money for the show and he can get paid more. Dave Meltzer, I listened to his radio show today. He doesn't understand, and I agree with him on this, and I'm sure everyone else does. We've seen, like, crowds are way more hot in the UK because they don't get American wrestling and the bigger names over there. Like, for instance, WWE just went to France and Scotland and had hot crowds, much hotter than American and Canadian crowds. He doesn't understand, with AEW being so dead right now, why they are not doing more shows in the UK, and I have to agree with him on that. Adam Copeland posted an update on his foot injury, that he now has 5 more screws and a plate in his body. I got 2 screws in mine, and I'm doing my comeback this Saturday night in Napanee. But for Ricky Starks and other AEW news, who they're not using, He's another one of these guys like Rusev and how Jeff Hardy was before he was released, how Jake Hager was before he was released. They're just not using him. I'm not a fan of Ricky Starks, but I do think that it's just such a waste of money that they just like is Ricky Starks really going to wrestle anywhere but NXT if they release him? It's not like I don't think he's going to get a main event push in WWE. Tony Khan just pays people to sit at home. A rumor came out today that I guess he won the Owen Hart tournament last year, and apparently there may have been a bar situation with him in Calgary last year, and maybe that's why he's not in the Owen Hart tournament at all this year and hasn't been on TV. Who knows? I worked in the bar scene in Calgary. There's a lot of fights in Calgary. I mean, it's a rough cowboyish type city where people like to fight. So I don't know if he got in a fight. All I can tell you is it's not that hard to get a fight in a bar in Calgary. Not that hard at all. People like to fight there. So I'm not going to say first of all we're only hearing about this now a year later and I think he won the championship since then. So it's just rumor and innuendo that that may or may not be why they're using him. They just like to waste money. It's a wasteful company. It's not run like a business. CM Punk said they lost 34 million last year. Supposedly they're paying MJF 25 million for a 5-year contract. They hired his girlfriend on top of that. I mean, is MJF worth 5 million a year when he was just on a show that got a 0.16 rating? And MJF would not be a main event player in WWE. I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm just saying the main event scene is too thick right now at WWE, and to be honest, he's too short to work with a guy like The Rock or Roman Reigns that are much taller. Even Cody Rhodes is like 6'2" ish. There's not a long history of pushing short people in WWE. Mark Coleman versus Don Fry was the original fight, apparently, for the Takayama versus Don Fry fight that ended up happening where they were just pounding each other. Which, by the way, I've got clips of Don Fry talking about that fight on this channel, but I'm only bringing that up because it was the 20th anniversary of that fight last year. Tia Tao, or sorry, Hala Tui, the first ever UFC fighter to walk that aisle, the sumo guy from Hawaii who got his teeth knocked out and lost in 26 seconds in the very first ever UFC pay-per-view match. He passed away recently, so RIP to him. All of those guys from those original UFC pay-per-views uh, were brave, more brave. Like it was not regulated very much then, and now like it's about as safe as it can be for MMA. But like it was no holds barred back then. Alan says the product sucks, plain and simple. I agree. I mean, The Rock breathed a bit of life into it, but not enough to make me actually want to watch his WrestleMania match, which I still haven't watched. Gregory said it was a privilege to watch the Wild Samoans. Alan remembers him being managed by Captain Lou Albano. Good evening to you, Mitch Miller. Ivan Santos, WWC legend Rico Suave is going to have his leg amputated. I am sorry to hear that. Ivan Santos. I was managed by Rico Suave before, and although I haven't seen him since 2008, I always considered him a friend when I wrestled there. Which, by the way, Ivan, I would like to go back and wrestle in Puerto Rico. I really would. I know you can't do it full time anymore, but I miss Puerto Rico. R.I.P. Sika from Cameron. It was Offa that managed the head shrinkers in the 90s. Maybe Sika did it a few times, but it was Offa, and Offa has been having health issues. They seem to be staying on top of them. Andrew, most security guard jobs pay shit. The only ones that pay well are in-house jobs. Yeah, and I agree. I did security. This is why I don't understand wrestlers that complain for sitting at home getting paid because I've done bouncing jobs. Some they only like bring you in for 4 hours to work the last part of the night and you get $60. And sometimes you're getting in as many as 6 fights a night. Not exaggerating that. Edmonton lost to Florida last night. I remember in 2007 when the Ottawa Senators were in the playoffs, people were going nuts because it was their first real run and they failed. I've hated the Senators ever since they didn't win and there was so many problems and fights and I'm making pennies. Security guard jobs do suck. And I'll be honest, when you're working alone, and I have worked alone at bars before, you kinda can't be that. I'm not condoning what he did, but there was probably a reason why he had to use the knife. The guy double aped him. Maybe he thought the guy was armed. I don't know. All I'm saying is don't call the guy that friggin' attacked the security guard the victim. Security guard had a weapon on him. Did he use too much force? It will become a use of force thing, but I'm sure there's more to it, and I'm sure there's another side of it that's gonna come out, but I don't call any piece of shit that wants to attack a nice Scorpio is a nice guy, okay? I've dealt with so many wrestlers over the years, so many wrestlers. We've fought. We have had really hard matches at times. Watch Bloodhunter versus Scorpio. I got a concussion, tore my pec in that match. I respect him, but as far as, like, being an honest guy, a reliable guy, and a nice guy without an ego. He's one of the nicest wrestlers ever, and I would not say that. This is not a guy that's going around stabbing people for no reason, okay? He was attacked, he happened to have a knife on him. He's working alone, doing security. He has, I think, somewhere around 6 kids. He's almost 60. Look at the other side of it. I'm not I don't have access to the video camera footage. Sure it's eventually gonna come out. I got some very good guests for August. I am gonna be trying to live stream the event this weekend, by the way, in Napanee. I'm gonna be doing tests all afternoon featuring Renee Dupree, who I'm interviewing tomorrow night live on this channel, ECW's Angel Medina, Paul Roma, and Mario Mancini, who I'll be honest, may have taken too many hits to the head. I'm sure I'll eventually get a nails shoot interview. Chris, Jacob Fatu is better than Solo Sikoa, a lot better, in my opinion. Jacob Fatu is the second best Samoan in wrestling, third best. The Rock is the first, obviously. He's untouchable. Then Roman Reigns, then Jacob Fatu. He's just more experienced, more independent experience, tougher. Um, so yeah, he just had there was MLW contract issues and other outside issues preventing him from signing with WWE earlier. For the Wyatt family stuff, I as I've said, Mr. Showbiz guy, I I didn't like the first thing last week on Raw. I don't think they did anything yesterday. If they did, it didn't really make the news. Um, I just thought it was unrealistic that they have all these people covered in blood with the lights off in the backstage area and smoke in the backstage area, and no one's calling the police. With all the medical people that we know work for WWE, they're just allowing these people to bleed to death. There's no one trying to resuscitate them. To me, that's just hokey. I mean, I'm not at all interested in that. So there's my answer to that. There was a huge riot in '94. Yeah, Canadians get crazy during playoffs. And yeah, as I s I'll say it now, I mean, I don't think I did anything illegal, and the statute of limitation is passed. I remember from the start of that playoffs, 2007, to the end of it, we were getting fed up. Whereas we may have been nicer at the start of those playoffs, by the end of it, we were getting attacked so much trying to break up fights, and there was multiple people fights and weapons fights that we were involved with. You were not getting thrown out in the nicest way by the time, game 7 rolled around, and that night when they lost was a gong show. I remember one of those nights during that time, there was, like, a patio outside of this place. It's since moved locations, but, this was like a college bar, but it was fairly cheap drinks and rough. I remember, like, we had kicked a bunch of people out. These one guys that had weapons left, came back right at the end of the night with their friends, okay? And, like, we're all lined up making sure nobody gets in the bar, and then these guys come up and, like, they're all pulling out weapons, and one of them said, actually, "Hey, I'm Puerto Rican. We don't fool around in Puerto Rico." And it's funny because they had no idea that I literally just come from Puerto Rico wrestling, and, like, it just happened. The only thing that saved a major fight going on was the police walked up, like, seconds after that, and they scattered, but, like, there was almost a very serious. I remember there was almost very serious knife fight because this Puerto Rican guy didn't like how he's thrown out, and he brought back a gang. So, I mean, and again, I was getting $60 a night then. So, by the way, Tony Khan, you probably hate me because I speak my mind, but you can pay me the minimum 150 anytime. I'll put anyone you want over. That's American money. That's like 180,000 Canadian. Where you we hardly wrestle there. Ragu Overlord, is talking about something. Or is more. I'm not gonna boring. Banana says it happened in a city where they always favor the criminals. Kansas City will treat Scorpio as criminal. Again, he's freaking attacked. I'm so sorry. If I thought for 1 second, and I've been around him a lot, okay? I mean, I've used him in Great North Wrestling maybe 5 or 6 times, and I've been on other shows with him. He's a nice guy, man. He's not a type that walks around like a tough guy. I know he's a tough guy. I know he is. I can tell by his energy, but he's a cool guy, and I'm telling you guys, he's not going around going to work at a gas station where he's probably making minimum wage looking for trouble. He's just not, because now there's a whole other issue. Does he even still have his job? It's like, how is he going to feed his family now? How is he going to pay for attorney's fees? Like, I'm sure this was not something that he's happy about. Yes, we are going to try and stream. This event is only 2 hours from Toronto. Napanee is 2 hours from Toronto. We are gonna try and stream the event. Rosy was off as his older according to Wikipedia, Rosy was Sika's son. I'll let me look that up right now. According to Wikipedia, he was also Rosy's son. You might know more than Wikipedia. I haven't wrestled for about 2 years, but I'm wrestling this Saturday night. Yes, there is wrestling events this Saturday night in Napanee, Ontario, and then August 31st, in Petawawa, Ontario. There after that we're going to be running every second month for the rest of this year. And if that goes well, we're going to continue to run every second month. And if it goes even more well, we're going to run every month. So it's up to you fans that live in the areas to come. Thank you, Humble. Appreciate it. All the best. Gonna be giving it my all out there. Ivan is saying Rosy was Sika's oldest son. Well, if he was, change it on Wikipedia. Again, I only have very few recollections of Sika. He's most famous these days for being Roman Reigns' father. Someone should change his Wikipedia if he's not Rosy's son. I'm just saying what it says on Wikipedia. God bless him. By the way, it's next Monday. I am interviewing a college professor that has studied the afterlife thoroughly, and we're going to have a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to that. Ciao.